Alright, so again, we are trying to create this character that will be posable a little bit easier using these bone segments. Alright, and then we can animate them to dance or fly, you know, something like that. Maybe you do have a character that's flying or some kind of super pose or something like that. Alright, so to start off, we're going to make a Dune document. Alright, and as you can see here, it's all happening just like we did in the past, based on actually it's all happening, I had to remind myself here, in the main timeline, which is kind of a little bit different than what we had looked at before. Alright, so we're going to kind of make a stick figure to start with. Alright, so if we use our shape tools, I would suggest one of the things that I think we did talk about a while back is maybe for this you have the object drawing mode turned on. That means that this little box down here is gray so that the shapes don't merge together when we draw them. Alright, because remember, if we actually I'll show you, this is with the object drawing mode turned on, it's just like a solid object. But if we have this turned off, then if we draw, we get these dotted lines, which could be good if you wanted to merge shapes. Alright, but I think for most cases, you know, if we're doing something simple like this with just like a basic stick figure, we want to have it on so it becomes a solid object. Alright, so we'll start with the head, and I can see my properties. I can then go and change my coloring. Maybe you want to try to get it to be somewhat skin toned or something like that. Alright, so we would have our head, and then it's a graphic, so I'm going to convert it to a into a symbol. And I just call it head. Alright, and I found that most of their examples, they make them as a graphic. I think we could still do it as a movie clip, but I'm going to keep it as a graphic just as they had it in here, and we can see we have our head created there. Alright, so I'm going to continue by making other shapes. Alright, so my next one would be a neck. Alright, can kind of use, and what's kind of cool still is that you can get some curvature to this stuff. If you just hover over the edge, you'll see that the line does kind of move. And then if we use the transform tool, we can move it. And you also want to look at your pivot point. When we have this free transform tool selected, you get these little white dots, and those are going to be your pivot points. Alright, and that's going to be really important when we go to animate, because you wouldn't want your head rotating from the middle of the neck. You want it rotating from down here in the bottom. So as you're drawing your shapes, you should be naming them or converting them to a symbol and moving those pivot points. So I'm going to make this next one here my neck. It's a graphic, and I will continue from there. Oh, I guess when it converts to a symbol, it kind of alters that. So, alright, so it does stay there and there. Alright. Before I go too much further, I'm going to start saving this. And we can just call this rigged character, I think is a good explanation or demo. And I'm going to put an AM here because I'll probably have something different to work on from PM from them. Alright, so we should be starting to draw our character. I'll come back to this. These will kind of be all the parts as I come around just to kind of get you guys started. So we have our head, our neck, you have a middle kind of torso, you have some hips, then you have upper leg, lower leg, foot on each side. Alright, And what I would do is just, you know, make your arms are going to be 3 pieces as well. The upper arm, the middle arm, and the hands. And you can just, I'll show you how you can reuse them on the other side by just flipping them. All right, so that's where we're going to be going with that.
Good.
Good, okay. So I'm going to continue making my chest area here, just as a basic start here. I can go to my properties, maybe I'll change my color here, give them different colored type of shirt.
Does it matter how many joints he has, or does it not really?
Well, I mean, you should have an elbow. So the arms and the legs should each be in 3 parts. The upper, the lower, and then either the foot or the hand.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I was asking, because I was going to make 3, but wasn't sure if we needed 3.
Alright, so I'm getting all these parts here. I'm going to go now on to my...
So don't you make the arm bend by using the razor tool or something like that?
Well, we used... You could erase, I guess, and do stuff like that if you started off with one big shape. But I've been just kind of making them as a combination of shapes or just smaller pieces. A lot of times, too, what I've seen is that with these kind of limbs, you want to make like a rounded type of, almost like a socket, so that when it bends, you don't see the shape, like a lack of a shape behind it. So I'm going to make this upper arm by making it a combination of a kind of circle and a rectangle. And here's an instance, though, where I think you would want to use that other drawing mode, because we would want these to merge together. So right here, they don't really do that. I mean, I could group them, but even when you group, you're still going to have this stroke line, which I guess I could have just turned off the stroke also. But if I just say, where is it?
Oh my god, it's done. How tiny is our file?
There should be a grouped function here. Why am I not seeing it?
Oh,
There it
one of
is.
those long ones.
So grouping does not take out that line in there. So instead, I can do 2 things here. I can either turn off that drawing mode, and then when I make a rectangle combined with a circle, now I didn't do it together right there. I think I'm just going to draw with no stroke color. Alright, so there would be that arm with a rounded type of object. So I can convert this to a symbol. I'll call this upper arm. And what's nice about this is that then if we rotate it, and again we want to put this pivot point up here so that we can rotate it from that point. But now if I rotate this, kind of the rounded part looks a little more natural or hidden. So there would be my upper. I can then copy and paste. drag this. And make this my lower. You know, for the hand, just like make kind of a circle with maybe like a little oval coming off of it. This is just a practice activity. Once we get into the project, you can either draw or have files that are kind of all separated in Illustrator, and then you can modify them, you know, depending on how much work you really want to put into it. Actually, no, that should be on the outside. All right, so we have parts of the arm. Oop. This already had hand. I can just copy this to the other side and then flip the whole thing. pretty cool how I don't know if you guys use this function where if you start with a square, then you can kind of like inflate the sides, like in this case to make a shoe, by just hovering over the edge. I did the same thing with the pants here where I kind of just hovered over the corner of it, and then I had an option to kind of refine that shape a little bit more. So let's call this shoe. Alright, once you get done with all the limbs, what they the video has also is they create these circles which are called null objects, they refer to them as. They're going to give you a little bit more control over moving all the arms and stuff like that. So what you do is you make a circle, convert it to a symbol like we always have, call it null, which just means like nothing, and then you're going to reuse that multiple times so that when we're done kind of placing things, we can change this to being transparent, and then you won't even see it. Alright, so I think I can do the same thing with my legs here. If I just copy this and paste and then flip it, I don't think that messes me up, because sometimes you have to think about if it's going to be reused and or edited, then it's going to overwrite the original. But there would be my basic shape, and I'm going to refer to the video I had just to talk about the process of doing these null objects a little bit. So he kind of did the same thing with these shapes. Alright, so here's the placement of your nulls. You have them at the end of your feet, your hands, kind of one underneath the hips, one right in the middle there, one at the center of the chest, and then one up at the top. So we are going to place those null objects in there also. So I can just kind of keep reusing these. And they're going to give us a little more control over moving our bones and things like that. See if I go back and just look below, middle, chest, and above. Which I don't know if the way I have this set up is going to work. Alright. Once we get it set up, now we can see how this bone structure is all going to be linked together. So he's going to start, I think, right at the bottom and go kind of up from there.
We will start at this null graphic symbol, click and drag to the midpoint of the hips. Then click and drag, and notice that the red circle has disappeared. That's because when the bow tool selects a symbol, it brings it to the top. But we can still drop it right there, and it'll bring that to the top. Come back up to the belly area, and then once again, the bone tool has brought the torso up to the top, and we can drag about where that red circle is.
So let's start going from there. So it's going to go from this null to the bottom of the hips, to that null point in there, to the middle of the chest, to the top of the chest. So what we're doing is we're grabbing over here in our toolbar the bone tool, and now maybe I'll zoom in a little here so I can see my detail. So again, I'm going to, just like he did, drag from here into here. Oh, I think that got the leg. I want to be able to get like the hip area. Actually, alright, so we're seeing there, we're just connecting these parts. Where's that other one? I think I made one inside of here. Nope, I don't think I did. What if I grab another one of these? You'll notice that it did make another layer called armature. So it wasn't allowing me to put that on there. Come on, I should be able to put it on this one. Oh, alright, so it's there. And then this stuff is going to start to get connected here, so I'm going to try to keep this in line here. Now I can go back for my bone. Oop. There it goes. Now, so now it found that circle, and then from there, we should be going up to the head or the neck. Alright, so from here I'm going to the neck, and then to the head, and then up to the top, as you were saying. Alright. So now we have this thing which is starting to be rigged. We can grab these things, and when we move the head, the body goes with it. All right. So that's the advantage of this, is that we can take these shapes and they're going to move together. This also is kind of called parenting. One thing controls another one. All right. So let me see where you guys are with that, and then we'll move on to rigging the arms and things like that. Isaiah, you're still using your laptop over here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, she could use the charger.
You just grab the wire. I'm sure he has enough charge to do whatever.
Okay.
Alright, so if you're all named, then you want to get those nulls in there. So make a circle. That's going to give you a little more control point. So make a circle, convert it to a symbol, call it null, and then just keep reusing it.
I just accidentally deleted this.
Alright. Still making parts.
Yeah.
Alright. Color down. Neon colors. That circle is so simple. Do that. So what happens then is then at the end we can change the color of it, and we can go all to one.
What'd you say? What'd you do?
There's some common shapes, as you see there, convert them to graphic symbols. I'm just going to kind of finish up a little here, and that way I can stop the recording on there. Let's see, I would want to get my arms to kind of be in place.
Above his head. And they said
Alright, so we're going to rig these parts just like we kind of did with the other ones. So we're going to grab our bone, we're going to come from this point here, we're going to go to the upper arm, then down to the lower arm, to the hand, and to the null. Same thing on this side. Upper arm, lower arm, hand, null, and finally our hip area. Upper leg, lower leg, foot to null, and hip, upper other leg, lower, foot, and null. Alright, so this creates this skeletal structure, which will then move all together. So let's get this kind of set up first, and then we'll talk about doing constraints, and so it doesn't move kind of unexpectedly from there. Alright, so that would be the first part, is getting it rigged, and then I guess tomorrow we'll talk about constraining bone movements and things like that. Actually, real quick, I'm just going to talk about that. I would like to talk about cameras tomorrow. Alright, so notice we have some of these limbs that move a lot, alright? Or maybe we wouldn't even want them to move at all. You can go and select the joint and then go into properties, and we can say disable, basically, our rotation. So now that limb doesn't move, which I think that one we do want to enable. I think it's this one that we don't want to have moving. And we can constrain to angles. Alright, so, because right now this is going pretty crazy. So if we go in here, we can go into our different joints there, and we can say it's going to constrain it to a 45-degree angle on either side, so it doesn't move too much. Maybe I'd do that same thing down here. Select this one, constrain it, and you can really move with that. So see, it's not going past that 45, and I mean, you can fine-tune that even more. So maybe I say this one, you can play around with that angle and see what looks best there. Maybe this one would have even less. So that's constraining your angles. You can disable joint rotation there also. And then,
pardon the interruption. At this time, Manchester High School students will be dismissed. I repeat, at this time, Manchester High School students will be dismissed. Thank you.
then to get our motion, all we're going to do is right-click it, just like we did on our last project. And I should be able to create a motion tween out of there. Let's see what I'm doing here. Hopefully I just wasn't clicked on the frame.